Welcome to a special edition of the show, an emergency podcast, John. John was among the people who broke the news that Pete Alonso, 5 years at $155 million, is going to the Baltimore Orioles, which means the other side of this, the flip side, John. He's leaving the only team for which he's ever played, the team that drafted him, the New York Mets, the team for which he holds the franchise home run record. He is probably was the most popular current Met on a not very popular team by the end of the season. And of course, it follows by one day revelation that Edwin Diaz, another popular, successful Met, was leaving. It has not been a great 48 hours for Met fans. Who knows if this is some part of some bigger master thought on David Stearns, but it feels like a bad 48 hours for the Mets, John. What do you think?
Well, it certainly is a bad 48 hours. They definitely wanted to keep Diaz and weren't able to do it. With Alonso, we're not really sure whether they wanted to keep him. They had a nice meeting in Las Vegas. They said nice things, but did they really mean them? It doesn't feel like they were really ever close in this. And, obviously, Alonso feel needed it, and he certainly wasn't going to get the 155. You can't blame him for doing it. And obviously, he had for 158, which you originally reported, and now up to 205. It's good for him financially. I'm sure he feels bittersweet about this because I think he loved being a Met. He showed that every day. Came to play every day. Was built for New York, and I think it's a big loss, not just for him but for the fans.
Yeah, John. Look, I don't understand them losing Edwin Diaz. Like I would have understood losing Edwin Diaz because they were offering three and another team was offering five. But once it's 3-3, and I believe it was communicated to the Mets what it would take to do it, which was to equal the Dodgers, which was three at 69, and what their deferrals were. I think Edwin Diaz would have stayed. So I don't understand it because they were talking apples and apples. I understand the one with Alonso a little bit more in that the Mets clearly didn't want to go beyond 3 or maybe 4 years, and this got to five. It got to over 30 a year. I mean, it got to places where I think a lot of people in the industry didn't think it was going to get. It says something about the power of power, especially right-handed power, how little there is in the sport, and that Pete really brought it. He gets on the field every day. He can handle any environment because he thrived in New York, and all of that moved him to this place. But this feels like it was a divorce like 12, 13 months in the making. The Mets didn't want to meet his market last year, and Pete couldn't find his market. This year he did. And once he did, I think divorce was inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets just don't want to pay that kind of player, a right-handed hitting slugger at first base, big money. But Pete Alonso was a big part of this Mets team. He and Soto were one of the best things about last year's team. The other best thing was the fact that Diaz was arguably the best closer in the National League, at least. Now they've lost two of the best things off of a team that won 83 games. I get that they wanted to keep Diaz and weren't able to do it, and they didn't really want to keep Alonso. I think they should have wanted to. I understand run prevention. I get it. Alonso is kind of a mixed bag defensively, probably leaning toward the negative. Very good on scoops, not very good on throws. I mean, to me, you can live with a little bit of negative in terms of the defense for a guy who knocks in 125 runs a year, a guy who hits almost 40 home runs every year. So I personally don't get it. The emphasis on run prevention, I think, is over the top. I get they were a slightly below average team defensively last year. They were below average in terms of pitching in the second half, well below average. Fix the pitching. That's to me, that's the biggest part of run prevention is the pitching. Isn't Diaz part of run prevention? How are you going to be great at run prevention if you're giving up the best closer in the league?
Yeah, look, this is one of those things. David Stearns better be right. He better be right about these things that he can reform a team uh, in his view. And I do think it's his view, John, because I assume left to his own devices, Steve Cohn, who buys art, has one of the most vast art collection at the top of the market in the world. Like when he sees something he likes, the cost doesn't really matter. He goes and gets it. So I assume if it was up to him, he knows how popular Edwin Diaz is and how good he is. He knows how popular Pete Alonso is and how good he is. I assume he would just get the art, get the players. This has to be him saying, I'm letting David Stearns run baseball operations. David Stearns doesn't believe in this. So the question I have shifts a little bit back to Steve Cohen then. What is his place in this? And does he need to communicate with the fans in some way and explain what is going on here?
Well, if not him, I think he does. But if not him, certainly David Stearns. He talked to us the last 2 days here. He wasn't able really to talk about the Diaz situation, and maybe he's, feeling like he can't really talk about this either. But somebody needs to say something and explain what the heck is going on here, because they've taken an 83 team and now it looks like about a 73 win team at best. They have pitching deficiency in the bullpen. They have half a bullpen. Their rotation wasn't very good. Now we don't have they don't have a first baseman. They're missing two outfielders. There's a lot of negativity right now, and I'm with you. I think that Steve needs to address the fans. I'll even take Stearns addressing the fans. He did the last 2 days, although couldn't say much about Diaz. He still was there and he talked, and I mean, something needs to be said. It's just left out there now that they've lost this extremely valuable and extremely popular player, and it's a very bad day. I mean, yesterday was a bad day. This is twice as bad.
Yeah, I mean, they're bleeding the little talent and little popularity they had on the most disappointing team in the sport. So it does lead, John, and I know the answer is it's a tough answer, right? Because right-hand power is so hard to find in the sport. I find it interesting that of the top six right-handed power hitters, the number of homers hit this in 2025, the Orioles have acquired two of them so far this offseason, and Taylor Ward, who is six, and Pete Alonso, who's fourth. So they've cornered the market on something the Mets badly need. So let's talk about what is the pivot. Does it have to be righty power? Could it be just, hey, Soto and Lindor are going to be homers, and we think we'll get 20 from this guy and 20 from that guy by the time they're all done? Like, is it a Bellinger? Who they could probably feel will hit 15 to 25 and play either first and or the outfield someplace. Is it Akamoto coming from Japan, a right-hand hitter? Do they shock us and do Alex Bregman and then use either Brett Beatty at first or as a trade piece to try to go get pitching? I wonder what you think of the mechanism, or do you think they're not going to do very much?
Yeah, I don't see Bregman coming. They like Beatty at third base. They're really into the run prevention. I get it. Bregman would help run prevention. They didn't really pursue him last year. I haven't heard that they're pursuing him now. Bellinger, terrific. He's a terrific player. Do they just like taking Yankees? I'm not sure what that's about. He is a very good defender at four positions. But he is left-handed, and he's another ex-Yankee. I mean, I know they're not doing it on purpose, but it does seem like they specialize in former Yankees. I do think they're a little too left-handed. I underprove at center field, improve in left field. You know, I would live with Pete Alonso as the first baseman.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Mets, of course, that ship has sailed
Ethos.
for for them,
So
and so they won't be able to keep Pete Alonso. If I were going to give one final thought as we
Are
wrap
they
up this
back?
special
You
part
can't
of
hear
the
them.
no,
show, I would say this is it's been a tough, tough, tough 48 hours for especially Met fans. The Mets were an incredibly disappointing team in 2025. Once they went to the NLCS last year in a surprising fashion, and then they took Juan Soto. They not only signed Juan Soto, but signed them away from the Yankees trying to keep him, and then actually kept Pete Alonso just as spring training was coming. There was a feeling that the organization was on a winning streak, that they had the right owner in Cohn, the right head of baseball operations in David Stearns, and the right manager in Carlos Mendoza. By mid-June, they had the best record in the sport. They were flying. And literally since then, Friday the 13th, June 13th, the Mets have been on essentially one big losing streak that has continued into this offseason, where they lost their way, they lost their season. Now they've lost two of the most popular players in the history of the team, certainly in Pete Alonso's case, two of the most successful players in the history of the team, again, especially in Pete Alonso's case. So lots of work for David Stearns to rebuild this team and rebuild faith in his administration. Thank you for joining us on this special edition of the show.